Hello, everyone. Tonight we're diving deep into that peculiar phenomenon where, as you finally surrender to your pillow, your brain decides it's prime time for a highlight reel of every slightly awkward, profoundly embarrassing, or just plain weird moment you've ever experienced. You know the drill. You're just drifting off, the gentle hum of your fan lulling you. And then, BAM. Suddenly you're reliving that time in third grade when you called your teacher mom, or perhaps that fleeting, bizarre glance you exchanged with a stranger on the bus this afternoon. It's like your mind is a dusty old VCR, and it's just hit rewind on a particularly niche, unskippable clip. You probably won't survive, at least not with your dignity fully intact by morning, if you let these little mental gremlins run wild. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. It's always fascinating to see how many of us are collectively staring at our ceilings, pondering the absurdities of our own internal cinema. Now, turn off the lights, maybe turn on the fan for some soothing noise, and let's get started tonight. You shuffle along, trying to find that perfect spot, burrowing into your covers like a sleepy badger. The world outside begins to fade, the day's relentless demands dissolving into the soft quiet of your bedroom. Ah, bliss. You close your eyes, a sigh escaping your lips, and for a glorious few seconds, you are pure potential energy, poised on the precipice of slumber. And then it happens. That one weird moment. It could be something utterly insignificant, the way a barista pronounced caramel today, or the particular shade of green on a passing car. Or maybe it's that mortifying conversation from 3 years ago where you tripped over your words, sounding less like a sophisticated human and more like a malfunctioning robot try to flirt. Your mind, in its infinite wisdom, decides this is the perfect time for a high-definition surround sound replay. Why? Why does your brain, which has been a diligent, multitasking powerhouse all day, suddenly decide to become a retrospective DJ, spinning tracks you never even requested? It's almost as if your brain, freed from the constant bombardment of external stimuli, finally has the bandwidth to sort through its internal junk drawer. Think of it like this. All day long, your mind is juggling flaming chainsaws, riding a unicycle, and solving a Rubik's Cube simultaneously. It's too busy to properly process the oddball stuff. But as soon as you lie down and the chainsaws are put away, the unicycle deflated, and the Rubik's Cube solved or given up on, let's be real, your brain goes, aha, now's my chance. It's like the nocturnal cleaning crew arriving, and instead of just emptying the bins, they decide to meticulously reenact every slightly crumpled receipt and forgotten sticky note they find. It's a bit of a cosmic joke, isn't it? You spend all day avoiding awkward social encounters, only for your brain to force you to relive them in vivid detail just when you're trying to achieve peak relaxation. This nightly habit, this mental echo chamber, is surprisingly common. It's not just you. We all have that one odd moment that surfaces, that one bizarre interaction or fleeting thought that, for some reason, refuses to be filed away neatly in the archives. It could be the way your coworker chewed their pen, or the slightly too long pause you took before responding to a simple question. It's the brain's way of saying, hold on, I haven't quite figured this one out yet. It's an involuntary processing, a background task that kicks in when the foreground is finally quiet. And honestly, it's a testament to the incredible, sometimes frustrating complexity of the human mind. Just when you think you've mastered the art of shutting down, your brain reminds you who's really in charge. And that, my friend, is usually the part that just keeps on giving, whether you like it or not. So, why does your brain, the very organ designed for efficiency, get stuck in this repetitive loop just as you're trying to power down? A significant chunk of this nocturnal rerun phenomenon can be attributed to something psychologists call the Zeigarnik Effect. It's a fancy name for a pretty simple concept. Uncompleted tasks, interrupted activities, or unresolved thoughts are remembered better than completed ones. Think about it. When you're making a to-do list, the items you've already checked off tend to fade from your immediate memory. It's the ones still glaring at you, the ones you haven't done yet, that keep popping up. Your mind, in its earnest desire for closure, holds on to them, creating a kind of mental sticky note that screams, "Don't forget me," right when you're least equipped to deal with it. This effect isn't just about actual tasks like do laundry or email boss. It extends to emotional and social interactions too. That slightly awkward conversation, your brain perceives it as an unresolved social task. You didn't quite get the last word in, or you felt misunderstood, or maybe you just didn't process the interaction fully in the moment. So when the lights go out and the external distractions are gone, your brain brings it back up for review. It's like your internal project manager just realized there's an open ticket from 3 years ago and decides tonight's the night to try and close it. Still open. Still open. It chirps enthusiastically, even though you're just trying to get some shut-eye. Consider the classic example. You're at a party, having a perfectly pleasant conversation, and then someone interrupts you. Later, as you try to sleep, your mind replays that unfinished sentence, that thought that was cut short. It's not just the words, but the feeling of interruption, the sense of something incomplete. Your brain is trying to tie up loose ends to bring things to a satisfactory conclusion. But in the quiet of the night, with no one to finish the conversation with, it just becomes a broken record. You can almost hear your brain muttering, "But what would I have said next?" And then proceeding to simulate 10 different, equally irrelevant scenarios. It's a very diligent, if somewhat inconvenient, mental assistant. The Zeigarnik Effect essentially means your brain has a built-in mechanism for reminding you about things that aren't quite done. And for the purposes of sleep, done often means fully processed and integrated. If an interaction felt weird, where you said something you immediately regretted, or someone else did something that left you feeling a little off kilter, your brain flags it. It's an open tab in your mental browser, refusing to close until it's satisfied that it's been thoroughly reviewed. And guess what? Nighttime, when you're lying still and calm, is the perfect time for your brain to attempt these reviews because it's finally got the mental quiet it needs. It's a beautiful, if sometimes frustrating, design flaw in our cognitive architecture. It's also why stressing about something you have to do tomorrow can keep you awake. Your brain registers it as an uncompleted task looming on the horizon. The more you try to push it away, the more it pushes back. A mental game of whack-a-mole that you can't win until you either deal with the task or consciously decide to defer its processing. But deferring processing when your brain has decided it's prime time for a deep dive? That's a challenge, my friend. It's like telling a meticulous librarian to ignore a book that's been left out of place. It goes against their very nature. So, when that weird moment resurfaces, it's often your brain's clumsy attempt to sort, categorize, and ultimately put that mental book back on the right shelf. It just prefers to do it when you're trying to count sheep. Beyond the Zeigarnik Effect, there's another powerful, albeit less obvious, culprit behind your mind's nightly rerun habit: emotional residue. Throughout your day, you encounter a kaleidoscope of emotions. Fleeting irritations, moments of joy, mild anxieties, surprising connections, even just subtle shifts in mood. While you might consciously shrug off that slightly snide comment from a colleague or the unexpected kindness of a stranger, your brain doesn't just forget it. These emotional echoes, even seemingly minor ones, leave a lingering trace. And when you finally lie down and the active, conscious suppression of these feelings dissipates, they bubble up, often attaching themselves to specific memories or interactions. Think of it like this. Your emotions are little invisible magnets, and certain moments from your day are small, metallic flecks. Even if you're not paying attention, some of those flecks get stuck. During the day, you're busy. You're distracted by the next task, the next conversation, the next cat video. Your conscious mind is a bouncer at the door of your awareness, letting in only the most pressing concerns. But when that bouncer goes on break, all those little emotional tags suddenly have free rein. And guess what? The moments with the strongest emotional tags, even if the emotion was just a whisper of discomfort or a faint blush of embarrassment, are the ones most likely to pop up. It's like your brain is finally doing its emotional filing, and sometimes it pulls out a folder that you thought was already tucked away. This is why that one weird moment often carries a subtle emotional charge. It might not be a full-blown traumatic event, but it could be the slight feeling of awkwardness, that fleeting sense of inadequacy, or even a tiny spark of surprise. That micro-emotion acts as a beacon, drawing your mind back to the incident. Your brain, in its quiet processing hours, attempts to make sense of these emotional imprints. Why did I feel that? It implicitly asks, replaying the scenario in an attempt to categorize and understand. This is a perfectly natural part of how we process our experiences and learn from them. The problem is, when it happens right before you're trying to achieve blissful oblivion, it feels less like healthy processing and more like psychological torture by 1,000 tiny paper cuts. For example, imagine you had a slightly uncomfortable exchange with a new acquaintance today. Maybe you misread a social cue, or they said something that rubbed you the wrong way, but you politely smiled and moved on. Consciously, you dismissed it. But later, as you're lying in bed, your mind decides that this was an emotionally significant interaction that needs further review. It replays the facial expressions, the intonation, your own internal response. It's trying to learn to adjust your social algorithms for future interactions. But in the moment, all you want is for it to hit fast forward and get to the sleep part of the program. It's also important to remember that our brains are inherently problem-solving machines. If an interaction felt unresolved emotionally, even slightly, your brain might see it as a miniature puzzle to be solved. Why did that make me feel weird? What could I have done differently? It's a relentless quest for cognitive closure, driven by the lingering emotional residue. This isn't always a bad thing. It's how we grow and adapt. But when it turns into a looping, unsolicited mental movie theater, it can be incredibly disruptive. It's the brain's way of ensuring you don't just sweep things under the rug, which is great for personal growth, but terrible for your beauty sleep. Now, let's talk about the brain's internal filing system and how it sometimes gets a little overwhelmed right before bedtime, leading to those peculiar replays. Your brain is constantly bombarded with information throughout the day, a relentless stream of sights, sounds, thoughts, and feelings. It has an incredible capacity to filter out the noise and focus on what's important, a process known as cognitive load management. But as the day winds down and you prepare for sleep, this filtering mechanism can become a bit less discerning. It's like the bouncer at the club finally stepping away from the door, and suddenly, everyone who is waiting patiently outside decides it's their time to shine. During your waking hours, your prefrontal cortex, the sophisticated control center of your brain, is working overtime, actively suppressing irrelevant information and directing your attention. It's the ultimate gatekeeper, deciding what gets through to your conscious awareness and what gets filed away in the background. But as you relax and shift towards sleep, the activity in your prefrontal cortex naturally decreases. This reduction in its vigilant oversight means that thoughts and memories that were previously suppressed or deemed unimportant can now float to the surface. It's not that your brain is trying to torment you. It's just that the vigilant editor has gone off shift. Think of it like a computer with multiple tabs open all day. Some are crucial, some are background processes, and some are just silly videos you opened but never watched. All day, your CPU is running hot, prioritizing the important tabs. But when you hit the shutdown button before it completely powers off, it has to close all those tabs. Sometimes, it lingers on one of the less important ones, briefly bringing it to the forefront before finally closing it. Your brain does something similar. That weird moment? It was probably a background tab all day, kept under wraps by your busy, task-oriented mind. But in the quiet moments before sleep, it gets a brief moment in the spotlight. Remember me? It whispers, just as you're about to drift off. This process is also influenced by the sheer volume of information your brain has processed. Even seemingly mundane days are packed with data. Every face you see, every word you hear, every subtle sensation, it all gets registered. Your brain then needs to sort through this vast amount of input. Sometimes the weird moment is simply a data point that didn't quite fit into an established category or one that triggered a tiny, unresolved question. since your brain loves patterns and resolutions. It brings these outliers to your attention when it has the mental space to try and make sense of them. It's like your internal archivist found a book with a crooked spine and decided that now, and only now, is the perfect time to straighten it. Furthermore, the brain's filtering isn't always perfect. Sometimes, it lets through seemingly random information because it's trying to identify potential threats or learn from novel experiences. A slightly odd interaction might be flagged as novel social data, prompting a deeper analysis. Your brain is perpetually trying to optimize your survival and social interactions, even if its methods are sometimes inconvenient. So, that weird glance with a stranger, your brain might be trying to determine if it was a threat, an opportunity, or just a random occurrence. And it figures the quiet of the night is the best time for this investigative work. Honestly, it's a wonder we get any sleep at all with such dedicated internal sleuths. As your brain winds down, another crucial process kicks in a high gear: memory consolidation. This is the vital, nighttime job of converting your day's experiences from fragile, temporary records into more stable, long-term memories. It's during this process that your brain decides what to keep, what to discard, and how to file everything away. And sometimes, these glitches in memory consolidation can bring up those seemingly random, vivid, and often unwelcome memories right when you're trying to catch some ZS. Think of your brain like a meticulous librarian who, at the end of the day, has to put all the books back on their shelves. Some books are easy to shelve. They fit perfectly into an existing category. Others are a bit harder. They might be new, or they might not fit neatly into any current classification. These are the weird moments. During the memory consolidation process, your brain might pull one of these unusual books off the cart, examine it, try to figure out where it belongs, and in doing so, bring it to your conscious awareness. It's not necessarily trying to bother you. It's just doing its job, trying to make sense of the incoming data. This is particularly true for novel experiences or those that stand out in some way. Your brain is wired to pay special attention to anything new, surprising, or emotionally salient, as these often contain important lessons for survival or social navigation. So, that odd comment someone made, or that peculiar object you saw, or that slightly uncomfortable social interaction, these are flagged as novel data by your brain. While your conscious mind might have brushed them off during the day, your subconscious mind, during memory consolidation, is given the task of analyzing them. It's trying to extract meaning to integrate them into your existing understanding of the world. And sometimes, that analysis involves playing the scene back for a quick review. It's like your brain is thinking, this one doesn't quite fit. Let's re-examine the footage. Furthermore, memory consolidation doesn't always happen in a perfectly linear or logical fashion. It can be a bit messy, like a mental blender throwing up bits and pieces of different experiences as it processes them. Sometimes, a seemingly random memory might surface because it's linked to a stronger, more significant memory that your brain is actively consolidating. It's like finding a random receipt for a coffee you bought 3 months ago when you're looking for your car keys. It's a byproduct of a search for something else. Your brain is just trying to connect the dots, and occasionally, it highlights a dot you didn't even realize was there. The vividness of these replays is also a hallmark of memory consolidation. When a memory is being actively worked on, it can feel incredibly real, almost as if you're re-experiencing it. This is your brain's way of ensuring the memory is encoded strongly. It's a powerful mechanism designed for learning and retention. Unfortunately, when it's focused on that one time you mispronounced a word in front of your boss, it can be incredibly irritating. You're essentially caught in your brain's private editing suite, watching the rough cuts before the final version is filed away. And while you might prefer a director's cut of your best moments, your brain seems to have a peculiar affinity for the blooper reel. When the world outside quiets down and you're no longer besieged by external demands, your mind, surprisingly, doesn't just switch off. Instead, it often defaults to a state of idle rumination. This is the brain's natural tendency to chew on thoughts, memories, and concerns when it's not actively engaged in a task. It's like your internal monologue gets cranked up to 11, precisely when you're trying to achieve a peaceful silence. This is why that one weird moment, which you might have easily brushed off during the day, suddenly takes center stage in the quiet theater of your mind. During the day, your attention is typically outward focused. You're responding to emails, navigating traffic, having conversations, or maybe just deciding what to have for dinner. Your conscious mind is busy, actively processing the here and now. But as you lie in bed, the external stimuli diminish. The light fades, the sounds quiet, and your body is still. This creates a vacuum, and into that vacuum rushes your internal world. Your brain, accustomed to constant activity, doesn't just go dormant. It looks for something to do, and often, that something is to revisit unresolved issues, contemplate future scenarios, or, yes, replay those odd, lingering moments from your past. Think of it like a car engine. When you're driving, it's actively engaged, propelling you forward. But when you park and turn off the ignition, it doesn't just immediately cool down. It idles, hums, and sometimes makes little clicking noises as it settles. Your brain does something similar. It doesn't just shut down, it idles, and that idle state often involves a review of the day's events, a kind of internal defragmentation where random bits of data get brought to the forefront. That weird interaction you had with a sales associate? It was probably a low-priority process all day. But now, without anything more pressing to attend to, your brain says, hey, what about this? This rumination can also be a form of self-talk, where your brain attempts to process and integrate experiences. If a moment felt confusing, unusual, or slightly off, your mind might loop it in an attempt to categorize it or understand its implications. It's an innate drive to make sense of our world, even the seemingly nonsensical bits. It's the brain's way of trying to connect dots that might not even be connectable, leading to those frustrating, circular thought patterns. Why do they say that? Did I look silly? What if? These questions, often unspoken during the day, become loud and insistent in the quiet of the night. Furthermore, the absence of external distractions can amplify any underlying anxieties or worries. If that weird moment from earlier in the day carried a faint whiff of social anxiety or self-consciousness, the quiet of the night removes the buffers you use to push those feelings away. Now, those anxieties have a clear runway, and they often hitch a ride on the back of a seemingly innocuous memory. So, what starts as a replay of a funny but odd glance can quickly morph into a broader rumination on your social skills, or your self-perception, or the general absurdity of human interaction. It's like your brain is a particularly unhelpful stage director, shining a spotlight on the most inconvenient parts of your day, just when you want the curtain to close. All right, so you've understood why your brain insists on showing you the director's cut of your most minor social faux pas and odd encounters right before bed. Now, the million-dollar question: how do you break free from this mental loop? How do you gently guide your mind away from its repetitive, unwanted thoughts and towards the sweet embrace of sleep? It's not about fighting your brain. That's a battle you'll likely lose, and frankly, it just makes your brain dig in its heels even more. Instead, it's about a subtle redirection, a delicate dance that encourages your mind to focus on something else entirely. One of the most effective strategies is to engage in mindfulness exercises that anchor you in the present moment. Remember, your brain loves to ruminate when it's idle. By giving it a gentle, non-demanding task, you can shift its focus. Try a simple body scan. Lie in bed and, starting from your toes, slowly bring your attention to each part of your body. Notice any sensations: warmth, coolness, pressure, tingling, without judgment. Just observe. As you move up your body, you're giving your mind a specific, manageable task, diverting its attention from the looping memory. If your mind wanders back to that weird moment, and it will, that's just how brains work, simply acknowledge it, gently guide your attention back to your breath, and then resume your body scan. No need to get frustrated, just a soft redirection. It's like telling your overzealous mental librarian, hey, put that odd book down for a second. Let's just admire the spine of this one for a bit. Another powerful technique is controlled breathing. When your mind is racing, your body often reflects that with shallow, rapid breaths. By consciously slowing and deepening your breath, you send a signal to your nervous system that it's safe to relax. Try the 4-7-8 method. Inhale quietly through your nose for a count of 4. Hold your breath for a count of 7, and then exhale completely through your mouth, making a whoosh sound for a count of 8. Repeat this cycle a few times. This structured breathing not only gives your mind something concrete to focus on, but also actively calms your physiological state, making it harder for those agitated thoughts to stick around. It's a bit like giving your brain a warm, weighted blanket. It just feels more comfortable settling down. You can also try a technique called thought diffusion. Instead of trying to suppress the thought of that weird moment, which paradoxically often makes it stronger, imagine it as something fleeting. Picture it as a cloud drifting across the sky or a leaf floating down a stream. Watch it come into your mind, acknowledge its presence, and then visualize it moving away. You're not engaging with the content of the thought. You're just observing its transient nature. This helps to create a psychological distance from the thought, stripping it of its power to keep you awake. Oh, there's that barista memory again. Poof, there it goes. A bit silly, yes, but surprisingly effective. Finally, consider cultivating a pre-sleep wind-down routine that signals to your brain that it's time to shift gears. This isn't just about turning off screens. It's about creating a mental space where your mind expects rest. This could involve reading a physical book, not on a glowing screen, listening to calming music or ambient sounds, or even just sitting in dim light for 15 to 20 minutes before getting into bed. These consistent, low-stimulation activities help to gently nudge your brain out of its active processing mode and into a more receptive state for sleep. It's about creating a consistent, gentle pathway to slumber, making it harder for your brain to ambush you with its unsolicited highlight reels. It's a slow, quiet fade-out rather than an abrupt cutoff. As the final whispers of a narration fade, you might find yourself settling deeper into your bed, the gentle hum of the fan a steady companion. The frantic mental replays, the awkward moments, and the strange observations slowly begin to recede, not because you've fought them into submission, but because you've understood them. Your mind, in its earnest, if sometimes inconvenient, attempt to make sense of your world, is simply doing its job. It's processing, consolidating, and trying to learn from the day's rich tapestry of experiences, even the tiny, seemingly insignificant threads. Feel the weight of the blanket, the softness of the pillow, the slow, rhythmic expansion and contraction of your chest with each breath. The world outside is dimming, and the sharp edges of the day are blurring. Allow yourself to drift on this gentle current, letting the thoughts that arise simply float by, like leaves on a slow-moving stream. There's no need to grasp at them, no need to analyze or categorize. Just observe and let them pass. The quiet hum of your own existence fills the space, a soothing melody that gradually lulls you deeper into relaxation. The memories, the emotions, the lingering questions, they can wait. For now, there's only the present moment, a soft, inviting space where rest begins to take hold. Let your consciousness soften at the edges, blurring with the comforting darkness as you surrender to the quietude of the night. Good night.